Hey, it's Zach Seyko with Locked On Nittany Lions. To my right is Zane Brancefield, contributor to the show and the podcast, and Dylan Callaghan-Croley of HappyValleyInsider.com, Penn State Rivals managing editor. And guys, I mean, this was a great game for Penn State, 63-0, the second shutout win of the season. And Dylan, I guess we can start with you. Seeing the offense, aside from the one turnover, right? You had the one fumble that was a little dicey, could have gone either way, but the refs gave it to UMass, so that breaks the streak. But Drew Aller still hasn't thrown an interception through 6 games, and the offense started to show a little bit. I was actually, they didn't show too much, but they actually showed enough to me of the outside zone game and some deep passing that made me say, okay, this is still on the way. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, they definitely, I would say, took a few more deep shots than we've seen in the past. I mean, coming to this week, they only had 7 deep shots. I didn't count today how many they took, but it definitely seemed the plays were there for Drew to take the shot if he wanted to.
Guys were open. Guys were open.
Now, he still decided to check down on quite a few of those plays, but they did show quite a bit of explosiveness today that we didn't see in the past. The offense, 63 points, they scored 14 of those coming off Daquan Hardy, who I'm sure will mention, returned 2 punts. But the offense at the end of the day scored on each of their last 7 offensive drives, totaled over 400 yards total offense. I think 408 total yards of offense here today. The running game got going, which is good to see. Talked to Vegai Oni in the post game. He said that the run blocking, again, the run game going was a big part of the bye week for them. And I think we saw the fruits of that here today against UMass. Obviously, I don't think you can take a ton away from this game. It is, to a degree, a glorified scrimmage in a way, a tune-up game for Penn State. But at the same time, you saw what you needed to see out of Penn State today. They dominate both sides of the field. They stay healthy. Overall, is exactly what you want to see out of Penn State heading into their biggest game of the season so far next week in Columbus.
I think that's the most important takeaway, the two of them anyway, is that you had a game where you could shake off the rust, but also you stayed healthy. We didn't see anybody, we saw UMass piling up some injuries, and that's unfortunate. That's the unfortunate side of this sport. But Penn State pretty much left Beaver Stadium unscathed, and that was my biggest concern coming into this. Now, Zane, let's talk about the defense itself, because I lost, they had so many sacks. Adisa Isaac had quite a game with 2.5, but then there was the special teams. Were you more impressed with the coming out party of the punt return game, or do you think the defense pitching another shutout carries more weight? Which one mattered more to you, the special teams or the defensive performance?
I think the special teams was a lot more impressive because Penn State's defense, we know what they can do, and UMass just, frankly, they're not that good at offense. And that special teams, even the blocking, especially just to get Daquan Hardy open for those 2 touchdowns, I think that just stands out alone of how good the special teams is and how good Penn State is overall. And I don't think people should be sleeping on them because, right now it doesn't look like Penn State has very many weaknesses.
Yeah, Penn State being efficient on offense. We haven't seen the explosive plays yet, but being efficient, as Zane had said, on all 3 sides of the football. And James Franklin made it a point that the special teams, that's going to be a headache. That's going to be a problem for a lot of people, Dylan, now moving forward, because you have to game plan for it.
Yeah, I mean, before this week, when you look at Penn State's return game, it wasn't kind of like the offense. It wasn't explosive.
No.
It wasn't really that efficient. They would get 2, 3, 4, 5 yards on return. And Franklin said, going to Hardy today, it's nothing against Caden Saunders, but at the same time, Penn State just wasn't having that explosiveness on special teams this year. And we haven't seen the kicking return game yet. I think that'll get there. I mean, Nicholas Singleton is a weapon. Anytime he touches the ball on special teams or on offense, I know we haven't seen that this year, but those moments will come for him as well. But with Daquan Hardy showing what he did today, that adds a whole nother piece of the puzzle for opposing teams. As Franklin said, to lose sleep over. They now have to prepare for what Daquan Hardy can do on a punt return. And, going into a game against Ohio State where these are 2 of the best teams, not just in the Big Ten in the country, 2 great offenses, 2 elite defenses so far this season. Special teams may be the deciding factor next week. And who knows, it may be Daquan Hardy who makes the difference. And I think just worth noting, Daquan Hardy, at least to his Penn State profile, had not returned a punt in his career before today.
No.
I feel like he had to at some point, but officially, according to Penn State, he had not until today. And now, 2 touchdown returns in one game. That's something we may never see again for Penn State. It's such a rare occurrence. So yeah, it definitely adds another layer to this for Penn State. And you look at the special teams, was the big question mark coming in the season. Punting has been good enough this season. It hasn't been a weakness by any sense. Riley Thompson does what he has to do. Alex Felkins has locked down that place kick and has brought great consistency to that. And now, again, the punt return game going is just, that could be big for Penn State down the stretch, because even if the offense doesn't have explosive plays, perhaps special teams could help make up for that.
Biggest concern now going, because there was a lot to like about this UMass game. There really was, but I'm going to go to both of you for this one. Biggest concern for Penn State, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. I would say right now I have a few, just because you're going to play tougher competition. You can get away with it against UMass, you certainly can. You can get away with it against Northwestern Illinois, because that's where it really showed up. Is it the deep passing game? Is it the inside zone running game? I'm still going to go with the inside zone running game, because I didn't see enough of it against a UMass defense that has a 3-man front. They're not very big. They're a finesse team. And Penn State, I was anticipating that Singleton would have a 50-plus yard touchdown. I thought this was the game. He did lead the team in rushing, which was good. He looked good today, but I'm still waiting for that great explosive performance. And it felt like, is this intentional? Is there a lid to this? What is still going on? So Dylan, we'll go to you and then go to Zane. Biggest one concern for Penn State overall going into Ohio State?
I would have to say also that running game, just because, it's been an efficient running game this year, but and maybe next week against Ohio State, yes, you can beat Ohio State being efficient on the ground. But when they go out and play Michigan here in a few weeks, in a month, they're going to need to break off big runs to beat the Wolverines. We haven't seen those big runs. I mean, the longest run of the season came tonight from Tank Smith,
your fourth string running back.
Tank Smith isn't going to play against Ohio State. Tank Smith isn't going to play against Michigan, and he's not going to be able to do that against those teams. Penn State today did what they had to do against a bad UMass defense. It's what you want to see, but it doesn't make me confident that next week they're going to be able to run the ball for 4.5, 5 yards per carry. Maybe they don't need that to beat Ohio State, but if they're going to beat Michigan in a month from now, they're going to need that. And yeah, I'd say the running game is still the biggest question mark. Perhaps the wide receivers being able to get separation downfield. We still haven't seen a ton of that. Guys are open. Not a lot of guys are wide open. But I think, as we saw today, again, the tight ends involved. 3 more touchdowns for Penn State's tight ends today. Theo Johnson got involved with 2 touchdowns. I think that could help open up things for the wide receivers here in the upcoming weeks.
All right, for you, Zane, is it still the inside running game, or just the running game in general, or the downfield passing? Because for better or for worse, that's been quite the conversation this week with following that James Franklin press conference on Tuesday.
I think the run game is a concern, but I think the biggest concern is just like the deep ball passing game that Penn State really hasn't fully established. We don't really have that like star wide receiver. Like, yeah, we have Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's having a good season, but he's not like that Jahan Dotson type of player that Penn State has like seen in past years.
You'd like him to be. You really would.
We would. And we had that one try where Aller tried to throw it deep to Trey Wallace, but it was just out of reach of him, and he couldn't grasp hold of it and bring it in. So I think that's something Penn State needs to figure out, because come against Ohio State or Michigan and you're late in the game and you just need a Hail Mary, you need to be able to trust your guys to make that play and be able to take that game to overtime or whatever that be, even just to win the game, because we haven't really seen that yet from this Penn State offense. I think they can do it, but I won't believe it really until we see it.
Now, Zane, I'll go back to you. We'll finish on this note, because everyone cares about Ohio State. I wasn't all that particularly interested in UMass, okay? You took care of business. You got a second shutout. You won the game, and you made a statement, albeit against a bottom 5 team in all of the FBS, right? UMass is probably one of the worst 5 teams in Division I in the FBS level. So, Zane, when you're going up against Ohio State, who is a top 10 team, top 5 team, analytically, top 5 team in the rankings by the media, the coaches poll, Penn State's got to pull out all the stops, and this is what we've been waiting for, to see the true side of Penn State. So for you, what is that true side against the Buckeyes? What do you expect to see that maybe is brand new for Penn State?
I think Penn State brings out a deeper ball type of play and does more running outside. We didn't really see a whole lot of that until tonight, we saw a couple plays where Singleton and Allen were pushing the ball outside, and I think that's something Penn State's going to utilize because they know the speed and strength that both of those guys have, and they're going to utilize that, and hopefully they get that deep ball game in there as well.
All right, and Dylan, kind of the same thing. Is there a new element? The new element today was the special teams and Daquan Hardy, and I think this was the perfect game to have. The bye week to get healthy, UMass to shake off the rust, and then now you have Ohio State. So you're at your best health in the middle of the season. You got a chance to not go into the Ohio State game cold because you had an opponent like UMass, which was perfect. This was a physical game. If this was a Northwestern game, Penn State, different circumstances. I'm not saying they're totally set back, but with that being said, if this was the perfect setup to go in against the Buckeyes, what is that new element, that one element we're going to see against Ohio State from your point of view?
Yeah, to carry off what Zane said, I definitely think there's going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on the deep ball next week. I think to beat Ohio State, Penn State needs to convert on 2 or 3 deep balls because Ohio State's going to get their explosive plays. This Penn State defense is dominant. Let's not get that wrong. This Penn State defense is one of the best defenses we've seen in a long time. I was looking at it today. They have Penn State's defense in total is about 17 points in the second half. I think maybe 6 points have been on the first team defense. The rest has been the backups. This team is dominant. Let's not get that wrong. But this Ohio State team is going to get their explosive plays. There's just too much talent on that side for them not to. How can Penn State answer those type of plays? Because I think Penn State's going to need some quick strikes next week to beat Ohio State. No matter if it's a tight, low-scoring game or it's a high-scoring game, they're going to need quick strikes. I think that's what we're going to see, or what they're going to try to add to the game next week is those deep downfield. I'm sure we'll see a little bit of trickeration, a little bit of more complicated routes or play designs. Mike Yurcich knows how to draw up a good game plan against teams like Ohio State. He did so against Iowa a couple weeks ago. In this game against UMass, Penn State can be vanilla as can be. They've been able to be vanilla as they can be really all season. But Mike Yurcich in his career has shown the ability to draw up great game plans against great teams, and I expect nothing short of that next week. I think it's just going to ultimately be, can Drew make enough of those big-time throws when he needs to? That's been the difference for Penn State since 2016. The quarterbacks have not been able to make those big-time throws when needed. Can Drew be that guy? If he can, then Penn State, I think, can come out of Columbus with a victory next week. It's going to be a very interesting game to watch, of course, and I think that second half is going to be big. And like I said, Penn State's defense only allowed 17 second-half points all season, outscoring opponents 87-0 in that third quarter. That could be the decider next week, and I think the offense is going to need a couple big plays in that second half to win.
And you're going to need that balance as well, because with the big play also comes the big turnover. Again, Drew Allar, by opening, he's played fairly conservative with his decision making. That's turned into 0 interceptions. If you're going to target the deep ball, if you're going to really go after this Ohio State secondary, just be ready. There might be a turnover or two, but I think I'm confident in Drew Allar's ability to still protect the football.
And just to build off of that, Drew has 16 career games, I believe now, 15, 20 touchdowns either through the air or on the ground combined, 0 turnovers. What we haven't yet really seen in his career is extended struggles. He's had 2 series, but I'm not sure they've got more than 3 series this year without scoring a touchdown. Maybe Northwestern had those extended struggles, but how is this Penn State team going to be able to face next week if Ohio State comes out and gives them a punch to the face? Can they respond to that adversity? Can Drew respond to that adversity? That's going to be what I'm most intrigued to watch next week, because it'll probably happen at some point. How do they respond from that? If they can respond better than what Penn State's teams have done in the past few years, this is the type of team that can beat the Buckeyes, and then if they beat the Buckeyes, all eyes turn to November 11th.
The last thing I'll add is the new wrinkle that I expect Penn State to add here against the Buckeyes, and I think it is that 21-22 personnel. All right, I don't care if they use 2 tight ends or not. We are going to see more packages with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen on the field at the same time. Mike Yurcich showed this. Yes, it was 5 years ago, but you have similar elements of what the Oklahoma State offense had with 2 very capable running backs that you just can't keep off the field at the same time anymore. So Singleton and Allen, we've seen it in practice. We've seen it a little bit in games, but now we're going to see it a lot more against the Buckeyes, because this is where James Franklin, whatever coaching staff it is, coordinators, this is where they start to change things up and add those winning elements, those bigger play elements, go deep into the playbook to get those kinds of situations, plays that they're going to need to beat Ohio State. You don't need them against UMass. You need them against the Buckeyes. For Zane Brancefield, who's a contributor for Locked On Nittany Lions, and Dylan Callaghan-Croley, managing editor for Penn State Rivals, Happy Valley Insider, you can subscribe to the premium for Penn State Rivals. It's definitely worth it. You get access to the message boards and so much other premium content. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And for more Penn State football content, more Penn State content in general, keep it right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.